After weeks of having Midjourney's version 5, yesterday night, Midjourney released version 5.1 and version 5.1 style. We're going to be actually jumping right in and seeing how it can unleash the power of these creativity that we already have with version 5 and what are the new things that we can find in this quick and easy guide. So without further ado, let's go. The first thing that we're going to see is that when you go onto Midjourney and if you go to the announcements, that is where you're going to see the information right over there. Based on the information which was given yesterday, according to the North American time, it was at 1:30, you can actually see that they're saying that they're testing it on version 5.1 image system. 5.1 is more opinionated like version 4 and much easier to use with short prompts. There is an unopinionated mode for version 5.1 similar to the default version 5. Which is called as the raw mode. I'm going to show you how the raw mode is going to be used. They also explain it over here. Don't worry, version 5 is still available as they have said. So with this one, what they're saying is other changes in version 5.1 versus 5 is higher coherence, more accuracy to text prompts, fewer unwanted borders or text artifacts, improved sharpness. We're going to put all those to test today. And then finally, how to actually enable it. So to enable this 5.1, you would have to go to settings and you will have to do that. Of the second issue, they're saying that this next one is going to be dedicated to version 5. So I'm kind of curious to see that. So with that said, so if you want to actually get some good ideas and references, you can obviously go over to ideas and features. Now I would say let's just jump over and we have a fresh canvas. This is where we're going to start with the version 5. So the prompt that I'm going to be putting in is actually the prompt that I already have on Twitter. You can go ahead and check it over there. You can follow me on Twitter if you not already have. So the prompt is this one. A beautiful Indian woman sitting between piles of paperwork, overwhelmed but determined to get things done by the end of day. Photographed using Kodak Portra in the style of Joel Merowitz using natural window light. Now this is the same exact prompt that I had for my good morning message on Twitter, so you can again go ahead and see that. I'm going to first put it as version 5 and then we're going to have a compare with version 5.1. So while that is happening, the way that we can get access to version 5.1 is going to be the same way how we normally get all the other models. So you go over to settings and click on enter. Now when you click on enter, apart from Niji version 5 and just Midjourney's version 5, you get a new version 5.1. If you click on that, you can automatically see that it has included a version 5.1. Now for the purposes of this, I'm not going to include it. So I'm going to go back to default and I'm going to actually remove it, but that's how you would do it. So you can actually get it in your settings. Now the significant differences which I'm going to be discussing are going to be the ones that we're going to be talking about. So you can help level up your Midjourney's experience. So obviously we're having the version 5. While that's also happening, I'm also going to be adding in version 5.1 of the same prompt. And I'm also going to be adding in 5.1 -- style raw. So this is what they mentioned about the raw, which is it's giving more coherence to the image. This is the first time Midjourney has actually introduced an incremental upgrade. 5 and 5.1, we already know what 5 can actually do. Now, if we're talking about the differences, we can already see that version 5 and 5.1 by any means has a higher resolution. Well, you may not be able to understand that visually, but one thing you can honestly say, if you had to just visually understand, is the overall image quality has increased from just looking at what we have in the first version. Also, the overall diversity in the kinds of different lighting and the different kinds of elements that are there, where Midjourney's version 5 seems to be focusing more on the prompt language itself. Version 5.1 is working with Midjourney's house style and adding an aesthetic boost. So as you can see in the image already, we have a specific boost in the overall aesthetic. And again, Midjourney's version 5 defaults to a more photographic image. 5.1 has the blend of a photographic and artistic style. So this is version 5 and this is version 5.1. It still has an artistic blend to it, as mentioned by Midjourney themselves. Whilst Midjourney itself, version 5 itself is a new model, version 5.1 is a newer addition to the model. As mentioned previously, there is a specific aesthetic blend apart from the photographic aesthetic that it already builds on 5. To talk about what are the main differences with regards to version 5, that would be the improved resolution. All images made with version 5 and 5.1 are at maximum resolution quality. Now what that does mean, if I click on upscale for 1, that means that the image is immediately upscaled to a higher improved resolution, giving you a pre-upscaled image separated from the grid. This means that the upscale does not cost you any additional GPU minutes. Now that should be something that will be really helpful for those of us using the fast setting on Midjourney. So you can actually be more efficient, as you already saw when I did the upscale over here, or when I do the upscale over here as well. It is almost instantaneous, how we have already seen in Midjourney, but again, the resolutions are upscaled and improved resolution. Now from the version 5, it is already a notch higher up when it comes to Midjourney's version 5.1. It may not be that much of a noticeable difference, but you can see a couple of differences already. Like if this is version 5, obviously we do know there is a significant amount of growth with regards to the hand aspect, but I think version 5.1 is really getting it nailed down with not just the hand but overall aesthetic. Again, like they said, it's not just the photographic aspect but Midjourney's own style along with a blend of artistic styles that they're adding for 5.1. Now furthermore, another thing that they've also mentioned with regards to this 5.1 is that small prompting differences are there between 5 and 5.1. Midjourney listens, and you should focus on prompting what you want to use, and mix of brevity and relevance was what was important with 5. What the word you use needed to be highly relevant because the effect of the tokens is greater. Where I have actually added my Midjourney's version 5 image, and then we will also discuss how these all look different. So now for example, this image was using Midjourney's version 5.1, this one was using Midjourney's version 5.1 raw, and then this one was using Midjourney's version 5. Now Midjourney's version 5.1, as mentioned, has by default a house style, a specific aesthetic that gives a boost by Midjourney, as opposed to version 5, which is just in general photographic tendency. But if you want to make it look not as much of a boost, then you can put the raw. So you can put --v5.1 --style raw. And then this one is Midjourney's version 5. Now this one was for the Sauron example that I had made, but I have also done one where I was comparing different landscapes. So again, this one over here is version 5. This one is version 5.1 style raw. And then this one is version 5.1. I would be really curious to see in the comments down below which one you think is calling to you closely. Again, I used a really short prompt for this one. And you can actually go ahead and check out my Twitter for some of the prompts I do share over there, and you can actually see what I'm exploring and what are the different kinds of things I'm doing over there. This is the raw version 5.1, and then this is version 5. For this specific example, I think the version 5 looks really strong, especially with the clouds. As opposed to here, I kind of like what they've done over here with the version 5.1, but I don't kind of like the mountains of Yosemite. This one really, I feel like, has a strong overall aesthetic on the bottom forest and on the clouds. Maybe not as strong over here. But I think where version 5.1 really shook me was with faces. Now this is version 5.1. I use same exact prompt for all the three examples. So this was my version 5. This was version 5.1 raw. And then this was version 5.1 as is. I think, and I was also mentioning this on the Twitter feed, is that the eyes by far is the closest to a real human eye. You can almost feel the emotion coming from this specific image. This one is good. It's a little more stylized, even though they're saying it's the raw aesthetic. And I kind of still like this one. It has a different charm. Again, these are all different approaches that we can use and learn with the model. Obviously, moving forward, it is getting more and more stronger. Looking back, I think one thing that somebody had mentioned in the feed, which I'm going to also put it over here, is the gradation of hands has evolved immaculately. This one was the earlier version, as you can see. Then this one is version 4. And then this is version 5.1. Looking at examples over here, that version 5 and version 5.1 have an almost difference from one to the other. It is that it is not that big of a shocking change from like how we had from version 4 to version 5, but it is that nuanced change that pro users will actually appreciate and people who are just starting out would really love. So that is something like, for an example, this image was done by using version 5.1. It's really hard to pinpoint where version 5.1 and 5 are actually able to get the best out of it. But one thing for sure is that version 5.1 is really going to push it. And I'm really feeling strong for when version 6 is going to come out. Because version 6 is going to be a really good version that we all should be looking out for. So there you have it. A quick look at Midjourney's version 5.1 and version 5.1 raw. And what it actually means. And what does it curtail for the future. So in all aspects, I think the future of Midjourney's version 5.1 is more of an increment, like how we have the increment updates in an iOS update. I'm honestly really eager to look at the next iteration. But until then, do check around and feel free to subscribe, like, share, and if you also want, you can also go ahead and check out my Twitter and other places. You can also check out the other videos that I have on Midjourney. They are still applicable as of this video, but I'm also bringing out some more new videos about prompting and different kinds of prompting and different categories of prompting across the internet. Until then, I'm going to see you in the next one.